Ladies and gentlemen, when George Carlin spoke, he had this uncanny way of cutting through society's nonsense. He didn't sugarcoat. He didn't tiptoe. He dropped truth bombs with the sharp edge of comedy. Today, let's reflect on one of the paradoxes he might have loved. The dumbest people always seem the most confident. We've all seen it. The person who knows the least often speaks the loudest. They walk into the room, chest out, voice booming, convinced that their half-baked opinion is the final word. Meanwhile, the people who actually know what they're talking about are second, guessing themselves, asking questions, and thinking critically. Carlin would say that's no accident. Our culture rewards noise, not wisdom. Confidence is mistaken for competence. The clueless get the spotlight, while the thoughtful sit in the shadows. That's how we end up with leaders, celebrities, and influencers who are masters of swagger, but apprentices of substance. Carlin didn't just want us to laugh. He wanted us to wake up. He wanted us to recognize that comedy isn't just about jokes. It's about pulling the curtain back on human stupidity. And when we see that stupidity being paraded around as confidence, it's our cue to stop clapping and start questioning. So the next time someone struts in like they got all the answers, remember Carlin's wisdom confidence doesn't equal intelligence. Sometimes it's the opposite. You ever notice how the dumbest people in the room always look like they own the place? They walk in with that strut, like they've just solved world hunger, cured cancer, and figured out how to make Wi-Fi work on airplanes. Meanwhile, the smart people, the people who actually know things, are in the corner second-guessing themselves. They're sitting there thinking, well, I have a PhD in astrophysics, but maybe I shouldn't speak up. I might be wrong. And then here comes Larry from accounting, who can't spell Einstein telling everyone how the moon landing was faked with a flashlight and some tinfoil. And everyone nods because Larry looks confident. And people confuse confidence with competence every single time. That's the human condition, folks. We are living in a world where the loudest voice wins, not the smartest one. Doesn't matter if you've got facts, logic, or common sense. Doesn't matter if you've studied for 30 years. If you don't say it with chest, thumping confidence, no one listens. But if you say something with enough swagger, suddenly you're a genius. It's why motivational speakers exist. These people get on stage, scream about unlocking your inner potential and being your best self, and people pay thousands of dollars to clap like trained seals. Meanwhile, the guy who actually understands economics is in the back of the room, trying to get the projector to work. Confidence is the world's greatest scam. Think about it. Every time you've had a boss who didn't know what the hell they were doing, what did they have? Confidence. They didn't have skill. They didn't have brains. They had that magic ability to say something completely wrong with a straight face. Oh, yeah, just go ahead and circle back to that synergy report by EOD. What the hell does that even mean? Nobody knows! But it sounded important. And because they sounded sure, everyone bought it. That's not leadership. That's stand-up comedy with a suit. And let's talk about politics, because, boy, is that a carnival of confidence without competence. Every election, we get candidates who are basically game show hosts. They stand up there smiling like used car salesmen, waving their hands and telling you how they've got all the answers. You ask them a question about healthcare. They say, we're going to make it the best healthcare ever, folks. It's going to be so good. No plan, no details, just raw, dumb confidence. And people cheer. People love it. Meanwhile, the candidate who actually knows policy, the one with binders full of data charts and footnotes, looks nervous and stumbles over a sentence. Guess who loses? The one who actually knows what they're talking about. Because competence doesn't get applause. Swagger does. It starts early, too. Remember school. The kids who didn't study were always the loudest ones with answers. Teacher asks, what's the capital of France? And little Johnny, who thinks a globe is just a weird basketball, shouts Rome with his whole chest. And half the class goes, yeah, Rome. He sounds so sure. Meanwhile, the kid in the back who actually knows it's Paris is quietly whispering it's scared to be wrong. Dumb confidence beats smart hesitation every single time. This is why the internet is such a beautiful disaster. The internet is the Colosseum of dumb confidence. People who failed high school biology are now professional virologists on Facebook. People who can't do basic math are experts in economics on Twitter. And the best part, they're confident. They don't say, well, maybe this is my opinion. No. They say, listen, sheep, here's the truth your government doesn't want you to know. And suddenly they've got 1 million followers and a podcast. Meanwhile, the actual scientists are in a lab, quietly screaming into a microscope. The recipe for internet fame is simple: be loud, be wrong, and be confident. That's it. You don't need talent. You don't need facts. You don't even need pants. Just confidence. That's how you get influencers. You ever watch some of these influencers? Half of them are life coaches who've never had a life. They're 22 years old, living in their parents' basement, giving advice on how to achieve success. Success in what? Beating Call of Duty. They have no clue what they're talking about, but they've got the confidence of a man who just invented fire. And people eat it up because people love being told nonsense as long as it's delivered with swagger. And in the workplace, oh my God, the dumb confidence epidemic is everywhere. Meetings are the perfect example. There's always that one guy who doesn't know anything about the project but talks the most. Here's what we need to do. Folks, we need to pivot. We need to maximize synergy. We need to drill down on the KPIs. Well, he hasn't said a single useful thing, but he's got a PowerPoint with bullet points and dramatic pauses, and suddenly everyone's like, whoa, that's leadership. Meanwhile, the one engineer who actually knows how the product works is ignored because she said, well, I think we might have a problem with the server load. She didn't say it with confidence. She said it with reality. And reality doesn't win meetings. Buzzwords do. And let's not forget relationships. Confidence is the reason some of the dumbest people on earth are married, while brilliant, kind, thoughtful people are sitting at home watching Netflix with their cats. You ever meet a guy with no job, no car, no future, but somehow he's dating a model? You ask how, and the answer is always the same confidence. He just walked up to her like he owned the universe and said, hey, baby, you and me, let's get out of here. And it worked. Meanwhile, the guy with 2 master's degrees is at the bar rehearsing lines in his head, sweating through his shirt, and going home alone. Confidence is so overrated, it's practically currency. You can buy success with it. You can buy respect with it. You can even buy intelligence with it. If you act smart enough, long enough, people start believing you're smart. That's why we have TV experts who are just actors reading cue cards. They don't know jack, but they've got the suit, the smile, and the voice that says, trust me. And we do. We trust them because we're suckers for confidence. It's not that competence doesn't matter at all. It matters if you're a surgeon, for example. You don't want your surgeon to just be confident. You don't want him walking in the room like, all right, let's cut this baby open and see what happens. No, you want competence there. But guess what? Even in medicine, patients trust the confident doctor more than the competent one. If one doctor explains the risk, hesitates, and says, we'll need to run a few more tests, people panic. Oh no, he doesn't know what he's doing. But if another doctor walks in and says, don't worry, we'll fix you right up, piece of cake, suddenly everyone feels safe, even if that guy is a moron who graduated last in his class. Confidence is anesthesia for the brain, and that's the problem. We've wired ourselves to trust swagger more than substance, which means the dumbest, loudest, most confident people are running the show. They're your bosses, your politicians, your gurus, your influencers. And the smart people, they're all too busy double-checking their work, too afraid of being wrong. They've got competence, but no confidence. And in this world, that's like having a Ferrari with no gas. It looks good, but it doesn't move. You ever notice how society doesn't reward the people who actually know what they're doing? No, that would make way too much sense. Instead, society rewards noise. Whoever's the loudest, whoever makes the biggest stink, whoever flaps their arms the most, that's the one we listen to. Doesn't matter if they're wrong, doesn't matter if they're insane, doesn't even matter if they're foaming at the mouth like a rabid raccoon. As long as they're noisy, they get the spotlight. It's like life has turned into one giant reality show. The sensible, competent people are quietly in the background, keeping the world running, fixing things, paying taxes, changing diapers, doing actual work. Meanwhile, the loudest idiots are on TV, on podcasts, on social media, shouting at each other like toddlers fighting over a juice box. And they're the ones who get rich. They're the ones with millions of followers. Because we don't reward substance, we reward spectacle. Look at talk shows. Ever see how the calm, thoughtful guest barely gets 5 minutes of airtime? But the loudmouth who starts screaming, waving their arms around, insulting everyone in sight, they're the one who gets invited back next week. Why? Because noise sells, outrage sells. Outrage is like the junk food of society, no nutrition, but man, do we gobble it up. The news figured this out a long time ago. News isn't about information anymore, it's about volume. Every headline is in capital letters. Every story is Bürgerkei in dollars, even if it's just about a squirrel crossing the freeway. The anchors scream at you like your mom when you forgot to take out the trash. And you sit there thinking, oh my God, the world is ending. No, the world's not ending, Karen. Someone just sneezed on an airplane. But the louder they say it, the more you believe it. And it doesn't stop at the news. Oh no, social media is basically a circus of noise. Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, all of them are giant arenas where the prize doesn't go to the smartest or the most helpful, but to the noisiest. The algorithm doesn't care if you're saying something useful. The algorithm cares if you're saying something dramatic, something outrageous, something that makes people fight in the comments. Because fighting means engagement, and engagement means money. So who gets rewarded? Not the quiet person posting thoughtful insights. No, the person who types in all caps, TSA, FALATE, ANDURD, or IAU, boom, million views, million shares, book deal, podcast, presidential campaign. We live in a world where someone can get famous for eating laundry detergent on camera. Remember the Tide Pod Challenge? That wasn't competence. That was Darwin Awards with Wi-Fi. And yet, these people got more attention, more money, and more fame than scientists working on curing actual diseases. Because society doesn't clap for competence, it claps for chaos. And chaos is noisy. Noise is power. Just look at politicians. A politician doesn't need to have a plan. They don't need to have policies. They don't even need to know what day it is. They just need to be noisy. Make some outrageous claim, throw out a few slogans, wave your arms around, and boom, you're leading in the polls. Doesn't matter if everything you just said was nonsense. If you say it loud enough, people believe it. People vote for it. People chant it like it's scripture. Society doesn't ask, is this person smart? They ask, is this person entertaining? Politics has become professional wrestling with worse costumes. And don't even get me started on sports fans. Sports stadiums are temples of noise. Doesn't matter if you know the rules. Doesn't matter if you've ever even watched a game before. If you can scream loud enough, you're suddenly the world's biggest fan. The guy who's been quietly analyzing plays for 20 years, memorizing stats, breaking down strategies, nobody cares about him. But the drunk guy with his shirt off, painted in team colors, screaming, that's the hero of the day. That's the guy who gets on TV. Once again, society rewards noise. Even religion figured this out centuries ago. Who gets the biggest churches, the biggest followings, the most donations? The quiet monk sitting in a cave meditating? No. The guy on TV waving a Bible around, screaming about hellfire, demanding private jets. That's who we throw our money at, because quiet spirituality doesn't sell. But loud, sweaty theatrics, that's a gold mine. You see this in classrooms too. Teachers know this. The kids who get the most attention aren't the quiet ones doing their homework. No, it's the noisy ones throwing spitballs, flipping chairs, and yelling, "Miss, can I go to the bathroom?" for the 15th time in an hour. Those kids get the spotlight. Those kids get remembered. The quiet, competent kids are invisible. They're ghosts. And society trains us from an early age, if you want attention, be noisy. Doesn't matter if you're wrong. Doesn't matter if you're disruptive. Just make enough racket and people will notice. Noise is rewarded even in the workplace. You've been to a meeting, right? Who gets promoted? The person who quietly does their job flawlessly every single day. Nope. The person who dominates meetings with buzzwords. Who interrupts everybody, who talks for 45 minutes without saying anything concrete. We need to think outside the box, align our synergies, circle back, and drill down. That's not work, that's verbal diarrhea with a PowerPoint. But that person gets promoted. That person becomes the boss. Because bosses aren't chosen for competence. They're chosen for noise. It's insane when you think about it. If aliens came to Earth and studied us, they'd think we worship volume. They'd go back to their planet and say, those humans, they don't care about intelligence. They care about decibels. If you can shout loud enough, you can lead them anywhere, even off a cliff. And they'd be right. Noise even wins at funerals. Ever notice that? The person who cries the loudest, wails the hardest, faints dramatically. That's the one everyone remembers. Doesn't matter if they barely knew the dead guy. The quiet relative sitting in the back, genuinely grieving, goes unnoticed. But Aunt Marge throwing herself on the coffin, screaming like a banshee. She's the star of the show. Society rewards noise. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying all noise is bad. Sometimes noise is fun. Concerts, parties, protests, noise can be energy, passion, community. But most of the time, noise is just a substitute for substance. It's the human version of a car alarm. Loud, irritating, and ultimately useless. And yet we chase it, we reward it, we elect it, we marry it, we give it millions of dollars. Because we're suckers for noise. You ever notice people love saying, I think for myself, but what they really mean is, I Googled it once and now I'm an expert. Thinking critically is supposed to mean you take an information, weigh it, compare it, question it, challenge it. But most folks, critical thinking for them is reading a headline and deciding it's the gospel truth because it came with a picture of an eagle and an American flag in the background. People don't want to think critically. Thinking critically is hard work. It makes your head hurt. It makes you uncomfortable. It forces you to admit that maybe, just maybe, you don't know everything. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants the truth. If the truth means they've been living like an idiot for the past 10 years, people don't want facts. They want confirmation. They want somebody loud and confident to pat them on the head and say, yes, Karen, the earth really is flat and Bigfoot is hiding behind your garage. And Karen believes it because it's easier than asking questions. Critical thinking is like exercise. Everyone says it's important. Everyone says they do it. But the reality is most people avoid it unless they absolutely have to. You don't see people lining up outside the gym at 5 a.m. with critical thinking. Nobody wakes up and says, you know what? Today I'm going to question my biases and analyze multiple perspectives. No, people wake up and say, what's trending on TikTok? Let me copy that opinion and pretend it's mine. Look at commercials. Commercials are proof that we don't think critically. A commercial comes on TV and it's 30 seconds of pure nonsense. A guy in a lab coat who's definitely not a doctor tells you this new pill will fix all your problems. Meanwhile, the side effects scroll by at the bottom of the screen so fast you'd need NASA equipment to read them. Side effects may include headaches, diarrhea, depression, death, and spontaneous combustion. But do people think critically? No. They say, wow, the guy in the white coat looks trustworthy. Sign me up. Or take fast food ads. They show you a burger the size of a car battery with cheese melting in slow motion. Lettuce that looks like it was handpicked by angels. You buy it, open the wrapper, and it looks like someone sat on it in the parking lot. But do we think critically? No. We say, well, maybe next time it'll look like the commercial. Critical thinking would say, this is garbage food designed to shorten my life expectancy. But the brain says, cheese good. And don't even get me started on politicians. Politicians are allergic to critical thinking, and so are their voters. A politician can promise something completely impossible, like we're going to eliminate taxes, cure cancer, and give everyone a free pony, and people will cheer like it's the Super Bowl. Nobody says, wait a minute, how are you going to pay for that? Where are the ponies coming from? Is there a national pony farm I don't know about? No. People just clap, because thinking critically isn't as fun as chanting slogans and waving little flags. Religion. Same story. Now, don't get me wrong, people have the right to believe whatever they want, but critical thinking and organized religion have never really been on speaking terms. Critical thinking says, maybe we should question why this preacher needs a private jet. Faith says, shut up, he speaks directly to God. Critical thinking says, maybe ancient desert texts shouldn't be running modern governments. Faith says, quiet, or you're going to hell. See, society doesn't like people who think critically. They're a buzzkill. Even in everyday life, we don't think critically. You ever read product reviews online? People will say, this toaster cured my depression, 5 stars, or this chair ruined my marriage, 1 star. Nobody thinks maybe this has nothing to do with the product. No, they just write nonsense and the rest of us trust it. We don't check facts, we don't compare sources, we just say, well, 1,000 strangers said this blender is great, so it must be great. That's not critical thinking. That's mob mentality with we-fi. And the internet has turned the whole world into an anti-critical thinking playground. Memes are the new textbooks. People see a meme with some words slapped over a picture of Einstein, and suddenly it's history. Never mind that Einstein never said it. Never mind that the picture is actually of someone's grandpa from Wisconsin. People share it 1,000,000 times because it feels true.